Welcome to another Excel VBA tutorial video. In today's video, we are going to walk through how to update PowerPoint links using VBA. So in our last couple of videos, or a couple of videos ago, we talked about how we can take different Excel objects and we can paste them into a PowerPoint presentation. So things like ranges of cells, Excel charts, Excel list objects, and we can paste them as just regular objects, as pictures, and then we had these kind of special cases with OLE objects, and then if we could also specify with an OLE object, if we wanted it to be linked or not. So then we could create this connection between PowerPoint and Excel, and then we can just update those links, and then any kind of transformations we do in Excel, they'll naturally pass through into PowerPoint. So now that we can see that we can paste linked objects, we're going to move on to actually updating those links. But a lot of people kind of ask, why is this even important? Like, we already know PowerPoint has a built-in feature that can update links. Well, most of the time, it's not really an issue, actually. However, we do run into some issues when we start sharing PowerPoint presentations. So, for example, at corporations and companies, a lot of people will share PowerPoint presentations. So they'll take information from their workbooks and they'll put it into the presentation. And then so you'll have a presentation that has, in some cases, 50 different links to 50 different places. And so that's where the problem comes up, because something that sometimes happens is you don't have access to a particular folder where the information is coming from. And so if you go and try to update the links, PowerPoint's going to freak out and it's not going to know what to do because it's trying to access a folder that technically it doesn't have access to because it's assuming all the information from your system. And so what we can do is we can leverage VBA to only update certain linked objects within our PowerPoint presentation. Now, just as a forewarning, in this particular video, I'm not going to specify how to actually update specific file objects. However, in another video, I will explain that, because that kind of concept actually is a little bit challenging because we have to, in some cases, parse different types of files. And when we have to do that, we need to make sure certain things are done correctly. And so I've dedicated a whole video to that just because I want to make sure we explain the details behind it. But in this video, we're going to assume that there's a bunch of files that you either have access to or something like that, and we're just going to update all of those links. So that being said, let's jump into it. As you can see, I currently have an Excel workbook open, and there's different objects in here. So there's a chart, there's a range of cells, and then there's an Excel table, and I've taken all of this information and I've pasted it into a PowerPoint presentation. So this is normally what we see. It prompts us if we want to update links because it noticed that there are links within a particular PowerPoint presentation. Well, I'm going to press cancel, and now you can see my objects. So there's the chart, here's the range of cells, and here's the table. And if you right click, it is a linked object, you can tell. And then if you want to see the links that are associated in this PowerPoint presentation, you can go over to the File part of the ribbon, down to Info, and then from here you can go to Edit Links to File. So this is in the far bottom section of the right side of the PowerPoint window. So you just click it, and then you can see all the links that are associated with this particular PowerPoint presentation. And then you could update them, you could change the source, break links, things like that. So I'll explain again in another video how we can kind of do other things than just updating, but at this point, let's just keep it updating. So from here, we're going to actually write the script in PowerPoint because we want to do this all from PowerPoint. So it's very similar in a sense to the Excel VBA experience. We're just going to go into the Developer tab and we're going to go into the VBA editor that belongs to PowerPoint. If you don't have the Developer tab enabled, I do have a video where I explain how to enable in Excel. It's the same as in PowerPoint. So if you have questions on that, just go to that video. I'll put the link down below just so that way you guys have it. But if you need help kind of enabling the Developer tab, that video will walk you through it. But I'm going to assume you have it open. So we're going to go over to the Developer tab, and we're going to go over to the Visual Basic icon. So right over here to the far left. And then we're going to open it. And from here, it's the same experience. So if we want to insert modules, anything like that, it's all the same. So to insert a module, we just right click, go down to Insert, and then module. I already have a module enabled, so I'm just going to use that one. So from here, I'm going to create a new subroutine. I'm going to call it update links. Press enter to close it off. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to declare some PowerPoint variables. It's going to look a little different than the previous videos. So the first one we're going to do is going to declare an object variable called ppt slide. And this is just going to be a slide object variable. Notice how we didn't have to put PowerPoint before? That's because we are now working within PowerPoint. So this is the object model we're working with. We're working with the PowerPoint object model. If we wanted to use a different application, say Excel, then we're going to have to enable that library, and then we have to, name it like we did in previous videos. So we have to do the application name, dot, and then whatever object we want to work with. So in this case, I'm declaring a slide object variable. Then I want to declare a ppt shape variable, and this will just be a shape. And then I'm going to declare a couple more variables. First one is going to be the source file. Next one's going to be the file path. And these ones are going to be strings. I will explain what they are later in the video. And then the other one is going to be called position. And then this is going to be an integer. From here, we're going to declare two more variables, but these are going to be Excel variables. So what does that mean? We're going to have to enable an object library because by default, it is not enabled in PowerPoint. So we're going to have to enable it. But we're going to declare Excel variables. How do we enable a library? Well, we're going to go up to our ribbon bar, to the Tools section, down to References. Now, I've used this library in the past, so it's already enabled for me and it's already at the top, but I'm assuming most of you probably haven't used the Excel object library from within PowerPoint. So to enable it, we're going to go down to M, so Microsoft, and then we're going to go to E. So it's going to be right around here. All you want to do is check the box and it will be enabled. You might see a different number here. That's just simply referencing the version of Office that you're on. I'm on the latest version of Office, so it's a 16. However, if you're on 13, it'll be 15, and if you're on an earlier version, it will be a lower number. In this video, it doesn't really matter what version you're on. Everything should work the same. We're going to press OK. And from here, now we can declare our Excel object variables. So the first one I'm going to declare is going to be called Excel app. And then this is going to be an Excel application object. And then the next one is going to be an Excel workbook. And then this is going to be an Excel workbook object. We'll see why we need these particular variables later down in the road in the video. But basically what we're going to have to do is if we want to update the links and if we don't want it to take an astronomically long time, we actually have to open up the workbook in the background, but we're not actually going to see it. So that's for later in the video. At this point, we're going to move on to the next section, which is we're going to create a new instance of Excel. And we're going to do a couple special things with it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the Excel app equal to a new Excel application instance. And then a couple things. I'm going to set certain properties of this application so that way I can kind of set the stage for some stuff. So the first one is I'm going to set the visible property equal to false. So in this particular example, I actually don't want to see the Excel application. I want it to open up in the background, but I don't want to see it in my system. So I'm not going to see a little icon down at the bottom or anything like that. It will open up, but I will not see it. The next thing that I want to do is there are display alerts that happen within Excel. So if we open up an Excel workbook and maybe it has links in it, it will prompt us like it did in PowerPoint, say, hey, do you want to update these links? Or it might prompt us if we need to enter it as read only or anything like that. I don't want those alerts to pop up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the display alerts equal to false. So that will turn them off. And from here, now we're going to start moving into the actual PowerPoint presentation itself because we've created our instance of our instance of Excel. Now we're going to start looping through all the slides. So we're going to loop through the slides in the presentation. And so We're going to do a for each loop. So for each PPT slide in the active presentation.slides collection, loop through those slides. I'm going to close it off with next. Let's kind of look at this again. So this is our slide object. And then we went into the active presentation. So just like we can have an active workbook, we can have an active presentation. And this presentation has a collection called slides. And so this houses all the slides that are currently in the presentation. And all we're doing in this section is we're just looping through that collection, and we're looping through each individual slide. Now, once I'm looping through the slides, a slide can have multiple shapes. So I want to loop through all the shapes on a slide. So I'm going to create another for each loop. But in this example, I'm going to use the PPT shape, and I'm going to use the slide that I'm on, and I'm going to go in the shapes collection. I'm going to close it off with next. And so this is just going to loop through each shape on that particular slide that we are on. And from here, I need to ask a question. Oh, got to put my comment first. Loop through each shape in the slide. So now we're going to ask a question. Our shapes can have different types, and so I want to work with a particular type of shape. I want to work with the linked objects. So I want to work with the linked object shapes. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to use an if statement, and I'm going to use the type of that shape and use it within the if statement. So if the shape is a linked object, continue. So if PPT shape, I'm going to go in the type property, so this will return the type of that shape, is equal to MSO linked, and then you can see here, there's a linked picture, there's a linked graphic. I just want a linked OLE object in this example. You can use the other examples if you wanted to, they'll all work the same. But in this example, I'm working with linked OLE objects, so I only want to say, hey, if this is a linked OLE object, then continue. So then continue, and then end if. And from here, if it's a linked object, then it's got some special information associated with it. So one of the things is a source file. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that source file from the shape and store it in a variable, because I'm going to manipulate it later. So I'm going to go into my PPT shape, and I'm going to go into the link format property. So this has information about the link. And then I want the source full name. So this is the actual file path to that particular object, and it contains all the information that is stored in the link. Now, when we actually show it, it's not correct. So we need to do some manipulation to it, and I'll kind of show you. So first I'll put a comment here, get the linked source name, and I'll put it in a message box so you can see it. And then I'll run this script. Hopefully it should be all fine. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to run it. So as you can tell, it's returning the path information to that particular linked object. So it's just saying, hey, it's on my desktop, it's within this workbook, it's on this sheet, and then this is the actual object itself. Now, technically all this stuff right here, I don't need it. I don't need the sheet information. I don't need the object information. I just need the file path. So I'm going to have to parse this file path so that way it removes all kind of the extra junk. And as you can see, the sheet's changing, and then the range. Again, the sheet changed. The range stayed the same in this example. So we got the information, but unfortunately, it's not in the format that we need. So we need to manipulate it a little bit. So the goal, and I'm going to go back into my workbook. It looks like this. I want it to look like this. So the goal is to find the first occurrence of this exclamation mark and then take everything to the left of it. So we're going to use some built-in VBA functions to parse this file to get the information that we want. And so I'm going to go back in the PowerPoint editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to parse the source file name. And so first thing I need to do is get the position of that first exclamation mark. So I'm going to set my position variable equal to, and there's a built-in function called inString. I'm going to specify the starting position, so the position I want to start in my actual piece of text. I want it to start at the first character, so I'm going to pass through 1. I need to pass through the string that I want to loop through, basically. So that's the source file. And then I want to find the exclamation mark, and then I just want to do a text compare. So I want to just compare that text with what I have. And from here, it will return the position of the first instance of the exclamation mark. And so that's the position, and now I want to take everything to the left of it. So I'm going to do another built-in function. But this will be the file path, and this is going to be equal to the left built-in function. I'm going to pass through the source file again, and then I want the, the position -1. So this will give me everything to the left of it. And from here, now I have my file path. So now I can actually go and open my workbook. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close out this one. No, I'll wait a second because I need to change some stuff first. But what we're going to do is we're going to open the Excel workbook. We're going to update the link, and then we're going to close the workbook and then kind of redo this process. So open the associated Excel workbook. So I'm going to set the Excel workbook equal to the Excel app dot workbooks collection, and I'm going to go into the open method of it. I'm going to pass through the file path. I do not want to update links, and I do want it to be read-only, so I just set the Boolean values for that. So this will open up that associated workbook. It will not update links, and it will be in read-only. And now that it's open, now I can actually update my link. So I'm going to tab in a little bit. I'm going to update the link. So I'm going to go with the PPT shape into the link format, and then I'm going to call the update method. And then from here, what I want to do is I want to close the workbook and erase it from memory. And so I'm going to Excel workbook. I'm going to call the close method. And then I'm going to set the Excel workbook equal to nothing. So this will just erase it from memory. I like to do that especially when I start working with different workbooks, because sometimes if we don't do that and it keeps the old information, it's going to open up a different workbook and then we'll get an error and all sorts of fun stuff. So good habit to get into: erase it from memory, close it, and then just erase it from memory. And then when it goes through again, it will open it up again, but as kind of like a new variable. So good habit to get into. Encourage you to do that. Okay. So we have everything we need to actually update the link. So what I'm going to do, because technically if I update it right now, nothing's changed, I'm just going to change some of the coloring, so that way it's kind of obvious that the information changed. So I don't know, I'll change this to bright red, right? You can see that. This will be bright red too. This one, I don't know if the table has a bright red. Oh no, it doesn't. But we can put something kind of obvious. And I'm going to save this workbook. Perfect. I'm going to save it again. And then let's run it and see what we get. Keep in mind, it does take some time. I mean, it'll be a lot quicker than if you didn't do it the other way. So we can see it changed it. So it changed the actual color of it, changed the range, and changed the table. So it worked just like we were expecting. Went pretty quickly. Keep in mind, if we didn't actually open the workbook, I will tell you right now, I have in some cases sat here for close to 15 minutes waiting for it to update links. And I'm not talking like a bunch of links. I'm talking like 4. So always open the workbook, please. It will save you a tremendous amount of hassle, and then you won't think it broke and then try to close out of it, all that fun stuff. Open the workbook. But that does it for today's video. So if you have any questions about how to update links, or just information related to linked objects within PowerPoint, please put them down in the comments below and I'll make sure to get back to you. Also, if you can make sure to like the video. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos. I am going to do another video on this, but I'm going to go more into detail about, OneDrive files and stuff like that, because that's its own little beast. We kind of have a framework we can leverage, but we're going to have to change some different stuff about it. And then we can also talk about, hey, what if I want to only work with particular linked objects? So not every single one of them, but maybe ones from just a particular file. We'll also walk through that. So thank you again for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.